So let's, what am I doing? Okay. All right, so now I'm going to send just my call sign. I did not hear that.
That's big.
Send that again.
Yeah.
I hate live demos. Okay, it rogered it. If anybody was listening on 144.39, they should have heard the packet go out. The packet obviously went out, obviously was not heard by a network, and so it's just somebody that got an HD phone. Yeah, but it wasn't, when I said just my call sign, it's going to put me on the map at the origin of this thing. All right? So that's why I zoomed out. So now, if you, before you sit down, if you can zoom in, back in.
-2.
Zoom in, go out, right.
-2, is that the one?
No, it's -12 is what WB4APR-12 should have shown up. Now, of course, there's a probability that that one packet got destroyed. So this system, or got collided with. So this system, what it'll do is 1 minute later, it'll send it again, and then 1 minute later, it'll send it again. So it'll take 3 chances to try to get that packet converted. Now zoom in, yeah, kind of center. I mean, don't zoom in, just bring the center of town over here. And let's say that I want to go up, I was up the other day visiting Logan Peak. Oh, first of all, how many of you have APRS radios where you can actually do data input? Okay, very few. Everybody else has an HT that has a touch-tone panel, right? All right. So this would be good for this club. So everybody can enter data, not just those users with these radios. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push, select the menu, and I'm going to say, okay. It rogered it. That is the is my call sign and the location of the 72 repeater.
Okay.
And obviously that's not getting out either, because apparently, let me go back to.
Can we turn another bank of lights off, perhaps?
Sorry, don't need.
Have you got some more handouts?
No, that was all I had.
Okay.
Here.
What are the hands?
All your maps.
Oh. Oh, good.
Them all, really.
Okay, now I'm going to listen to 143.439 when that goes out and see what happens here. So I'm going to key the radio. Okay, you heard the ACK coming in on the DTMF side of this radio, and then on the other side we heard the packet go out of here, and we heard it get distributed. So that should go into Boz's iGate. So now, assuming it received it, now I'm going to say, take it to the repeater. That packet went out, but I didn't hear it distributed. So much for live demo. Okay. But the only problem is that this thing is not being heard. So let me move it a little bit. Let's move back here to the back window. Maybe we'll have a better chance of getting out. Say hi to the camera. Can you raise the, yeah, raise the curtain? I've got some seats. Oh, let me put it over. Okay, now, are those plastic? Yeah, go ahead, Lauren. Okay. That'll keep it going. Fortunately, we're all hams and we know how critical placement is. So let's try. Thank you. Glad you guys get 2 times. We're going to try this one more time. Okay, I heard it go out that time. And
There,
something.
just showed up. Something.
Now I'll try to send the. Not what I meant to do, but go with. That one didn't get distributed either. Eventually it'll catch me. So anyway, what I'm doing is I take my call sign and preload it into a DTMF memory. Everybody with an HT can do that. That's the only thing you need to do is put your call sign into DTMF memory. Then you can put yourself anywhere on that gridded map just by picking out the 2 digits of X and then the 2 digits of Y. And then what you do is you key in the B key, 2, because you're using a 2-digit system, and then the XX, YY value, star, that's your position. And then you play back your DTMF memory with your call sign in it, and now that adds your call sign to your position, and then that little box back there converts that over to an APRS packet and puts it out on the APRS system. So during an event, you can report yourself anywhere within that grid. Just by simply doing it. Now, there are other events. There's another format that we use. That's just to the nearest mile. And you say, well, what good is that? Well, that's 99% of ham radio, you know, when you're talking on a VHF network. Are you south of the valley? Are you north valley? Are you up in the canyon? Are you over the hill in Ogden? You know, where are you? And if you can report that just with 4 digits, you're doing pretty good. Turns out most people only go to 3 places, you know, home, work, girlfriend, and whatever else. And so how many DTMF memories do you have in your radio? You got 6 of them, you know, I don't know how many you got. But you can go ahead and preload those positions where you normally are located, and so you don't even then have to worry about remembering those things. You know, we're all used to getting in the car, sitting down and saying, you know, WB4APR mobile. Why do we do that? We do that to identify to the local network, which is you guys, that, hey, I'm available, I'm on the air. Well, with APRS-Touch-Tone, you don't even need to say that. You just push the button. Now, but here's the advantage. Not only does when you do it by voice, it's gone. The only value that information contains is if there are other people listening at that instant. 2 seconds later, a guy turns on his radio and he doesn't know that you're on the air, he doesn't know that you're listening to anything else. However, the value of APRS-Touch-Tone is you send out that data burst once with your call sign, and everybody on the planet knows where you are. They know your call sign, they know you're on the air at what time, they know where you're located. You say, how do you know that? All you transmitted was a call sign. Yes, but I transmitted that on a non-APRS frequency. I transmitted that on the input of this APRS-Touch-Tone device, which could be the input of your local repeater. So that when you send nothing but your call sign, at least that box will give you a position in Logan. So as far as the whole world is concerned, you're in APRS, you're on the air, and you've been identified. Now notice when I first sent it, I was trying to get my position to show up down here in the 0, 0 point of this grid. Okay, that is only this initial implementation. The number one thing I'm waiting for Bionics to add is to have two origins. One origin is where the map origin is, where you see the XY coordinates. But the other origin is a place that the sysop of this box in Logan would say all call signs that are entered with call sign only are going to show up here. Boom, 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 boom. So that every new call sign will go below it. So what you'll have on the map is just a list of call signs that have just entered their call sign. They're sent their call sign only. They don't even have to bother with the position report if all they want to do is say I'm on the air in Logan and not going to be contacted from anywhere in the world, because remember, anybody in the world can send you an APRS message. And so I told Brian that the origin of the call signs that have not sent a position needs to be different from the origin of the grid map, because every place is different. In Annapolis, I'm going to put the call signs out there in the Chesapeake Bay, because we know, a straight list of call signs in Chesapeake Bay is not a bunch of guys on a bunch of boats. So that's what we're trying to do. Now, the other position format is just a 2-digit format. Where could you use that? It's in marathons. If you say my position is 13, you're at checkpoint 13. And most of what we do at marathons is related to a checkpoint. And so everybody with their HT, as they go around the marathon, all they've got to do is B 13 star, boom, send your call sign. And on everybody's APRS map, APRS.I, the internet, everything, everybody sees you move to checkpoint 13. Everybody with a radio can do this. So that's what's so exciting about APRS-Touch-Tone. Very frustrating.
Your bottom corner isn't on the map. If you're referencing this map,
Yeah, this
it's
one.
not quite showing up on the one that's on the screen yet.
Is this a map?
You go a little farther down and to the right a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm not on it, am I? Oh, well, let's go down and see if there's just drag the map up so we can see down here in this corner.
0, 0. A little farther.
I know what. How about going, just entering in the little box up there and say WB4APR-12.
If you a little bit down and right of that little fold that's there now. Yeah, let's see it there.
Actually, probably what I ought to do is, let's just see if I'm in. Do I need, am I going to need a password here? Just go up here to,
Yeah, just do a search for his call sign.
I got rid of that tile on the side and now I can probably get that myself.
Just type it after the FI and it's call sign up there. Question mark.
let's use a real DC. Oh, well, I don't. I'd be. All right, now.
Which is in -1.
12. Well, it said it did fine. Within time range. I don't want time range. So how many show all of Okay, so now, well, anyway, that is, when I was testing last night up in my dorm room, that's what I was getting. I said, okay, I'm in Logan. And then I said, okay, enter 2 other coordinates, went down here. Then I went over here to the fairgrounds, then I went here to this location, and then I entered dorm room, went back up to the mountain, and then went up to Bear Lake. Is it Bear Lake? Yeah. And then went to that lookout where we watched the meteors the other night, and then came back to the fairground. And why does it have a 7? Because normally, call signs we use when we're hand portable, we use a -7. Okay. In this, when you enter your call sign, you get to enter an overlay character. We're not going to enter SSIDs because I don't want these packets to look like all other packets, because then you need to know that this is something that you can't talk to the guy, he doesn't have messaging, you know, he's different. Indian ends in -12 is a APRS position that has come in through some other device, and you don't have the normal means of communicating back with it, such as an RFID. You know, when you carry your RFID in your shoe and you walk into EOC, we want a packet to go out that says you just entered the EOC, but you know, you can't send a message back to a sheet. So that's what a -12 is. But I want the convention of the SSID 7 to show up. So you're at, so it's going to be a square box, and that's because that's the closest thing that looks like a touch-tone keypad in APRS. And then the overlay that you select to go with your call sign will show up in there. So you can see that's where W4APR-12 is. So let's try again. I've got 2 radios, right? There it is.
What are you doing down in Fort Knox, Bob? That's where it shows you right now.
There we go. All right, I'll put that radio here. I'm going to try one more time. Let's go to USU. So, no, wrong button. Oh, it acknowledged it, it sent a packet, but it didn't get digipated. Well, and I doubt if BOZ is going to hear that call sign direct. But we got to wait for it to go through APRS.FI and everything else. So the point is to be thinking of how you could use this at your next event. Now again, the whole thing that we've been talking about APRS-Touch-Tone for the last 13 years is that scenario where you preload your call sign and then you manually enter your position and send your call sign. Okay, just last week, the guy said, well, wait a minute. I'm sitting at checkpoint 13. My position never changes, but the runners, the objects that I want to put on the APRS map will change. So what he said, why don't I put the position in memory and then manually enter a runner, then hit send the position, and now you've put that runner number on the map. Now most marathons, there's too many runners, you can't keep track of individual runners. But they said, well, we're just going to keep track of the first, you know, the first runner number, the first female, the first one-legged guy, you know, just anybody that's unique that somebody wants to keep track of, we'll just enter his runner number, and boom, he'll show up on the APRS map, and everybody, whether they're APRS or not, or the internet, or smartphone, or everything else, they all see that tactical picture. And then another checkpoint. When they see the one-legged runner coming by with and enter his runner number at that new position, it does like every APRS object does. That object moves to the new location because it's the same object name or number. So again, it's a very easy way to involve everybody in the club entering actual data without having to bother the voice nets just sending in messages. Now,
Question for you.
yeah.
Why not drive it with a text file?
Why not what?
Drive it with a text file.
I'm going to enter a text file into this.
Well, I very rarely am out in one of these days where I don't have a computer.
Well, if you got a computer, you're about to go run APRS and then just enter it directly. Okay. Now, but in this new idea, which is only a week old, and that is where you're taking a fixed position where you're located and you're entering objects that come through your area, the guy said, well, why don't we simplify that? Because right now, you use the A key, you start any DTMS stream with the A key, and that means it's a call sign. You start with a B key, and that means it's a position. You use the star key as kind of like a comma to separate positions and call signs and text and messages and anything else you want. And then you end it with a pound sign. And the guy said, well, but for this report, well, first of all, I already said that the shortest position format is 2 keys. And that gives you a table of 100, typically like a marathon. First 26 entries are the mile marks. So that allows you to specify the mile mark all the way down to the nearest 60 feet, which is APR's precision. So now 2 digits will put you anywhere on the marathon to an exact position. with only 2 digits because you use this little table lookup method. So, for this marathon the guys did last Saturday, they said, all we need then is a 5-digit number. The first 2 digits are the checkpoint, the next 3 are the runner number. And so why not make, so we define a new APRS-Touch-Tone format, which begins with a star, ends with a pound, and then the first 2 is the position, and the next 3 are the runner number, or the next 4, or the next 5, whatever your event uses. But that way the DTMF user can't complain and says, I'm not going to do this. All he's entering is a 5-digit number. And not only does APRS-Touch-Tone convert that into an APRS packet, but you can actually have a monitoring, somebody who writes code could then monitor those numbers coming in and just to really build, your database. And mom says, where's runner 1, 2, 3, and
Put them on a map
Yeah.
somewhere.
well, with APRSTT, they automatically can go on a map
Yeah, if you have access to it.
if you have access. But you can see that the potential is just quite amazing. Now, what I was going to do, except that this other radio dies,
Bob, what I was kind of getting to was, is if you have some kind of standalone mapping software, this would be great, because I'm all about figuring out how to make this work off the grid, so to speak.
Yep. Now, what I'm going to try to do real quick, because this is what we should be able to do on the fly, right? I'm going to turn this HT into a digit feeder, and all I got to do is go up here and turn on. This is the only APRS handheld that does digit feeding. So I'm going to go up here to UI flood, UI trace, UI. And we'll make the alias be wide. Okay. Now I'll turn this radio off just in case it needs to. Go to high power. Now we got a 5-watt digital feeder. I would think that BOZ's down that way. Is that way?
Straight south.
Go put this
Straight
in the
south.
window that's facing this whole station.
Straight south, whichever way south.
Well, up high on this floor.
Should be able to get out.
Now let's see what we hear when I send in my. Yeah, that sounds a little stronger. And so if we assume that got into the system, I'm going to send out the position here of the jail. Okay, one thing. Come on back. One thing I didn't mention was to send your call sign, a 6-character call sign using a touch-tone keypad. Each letter of your call takes 2 keys. Okay, so that almost fills up. Can I show up? Can I move? Yeah. Okay. So I entered USU now. Because that's what I'm going to say. Well, but I'm not there. I am at the jail. acknowledged, the packet went out, didn't get digipated. Well, if I don't do anything, 1 minute later it'll try again. Because that box now knows where I am, and it knows that the APRS channel is not reliable, so it sends at least three retries out there. But again, my call sign is almost 15 digits long when you put the A in front of it. Oh, and then it's 12 digits for the 6 letters. It's another digit for my overlay character, which is a 7, and it's the next digit for a checksum. Because we don't want to start putting garbage. Yeah, it just moved. So we don't want to start putting garbage positions of garbled characters into the APRS network. So that's why we ask you to do your call sign once, put it in memory, because you need to calculate that checksum, otherwise this thing's going to ignore you. All right? Now, to simplify that, we have a little call sign calculator. Well, all right, now let's go down to the favorites. All right, key up, key up, select, let's go down and play golf. Got digipated, it'll eventually, so I should go down to the golf course. Thank you. So, let's go to a web page, let's go to APRS.org. And the very first link on the APRS.org, APRSTT webpage is a link to this APRSTT translator. So I enter in my call sign. I say that I want to have a -7 overlay. And then hit translate. And that is the DTMS string that completely spells out my call sign and that 7 overlay and a checksum, so that the system can know if it received it correctly. But here's the neat thing. It also says this is how you encode your suffix, APR, with a 7 overlay. A 7 thing in memory. And since most DTMF memories are 16-digit long, that's why I can put both a position and my call sign now in memory. And I don't have to do one memory to do the position and the other memory to do the call sign. I just, and of course, in most radios, you can actually give a name to each of your DTMF memories. So the names I've got these DTMF memories are, that I put in there last night. Let's go back to the map and see if we've moved to the jail yet. Or, nope, I'm going down the golf course. And you say, well, that's a lot of trouble to put all those positions in there. Well, let me do an arbitrary one. You see, you have both maps? So let's look at the local. This is the local map. So, if I want to go out here to this, inspect the sewer pond, all I got to do is enter in 5445 to go to the left-hand corner of the sewer pond on 5445. So here I'll do a complete manual position report. Anywhere within 60 miles of Logan by a 4-digit number. So what was it, 5445? So I hold down the PGT, send the B key. It's a 2-digit code, so 5445 star, then send. I should have left it on my call sign. Okay, and we'll see if That's why you never do live demo. Worked great with the height above average terrain of the dorm room. All right, you get the concept. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Does this system work through repeaters and linked repeaters?
I would suggest not working through repeaters because, again, you know, once the DTMF tones go through there, your probability that this thing's going to decode them is reduced by something. And, well, now, let me send something that doesn't make any sense. Let's send B1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a bad packet, and send it acknowledged it shouldn't have. But again, this was the get it really ready for date early. So the Morse code .K means I got your call sign. If you get R, Roger, that means I got your call sign and your position. If it's a NAC, rather than spelling out N-A-K and C-W, we go you know, an M, send an M, and that's a NAC. Saying, I heard you, but I couldn't make any sense of it. And then you said, diddy mama diddy, if you didn't understand the call sign or the other thing. So now, the original concept of APRSTT back in 2001 was that this would all be running on a PC with a sound card. That's all you need is a radio, a PC with a sound card, because the PC could decode the DTMF coming in and could speak back to you. So instead of having CW, it would say, welcome, WB4APR. Every time I transmitted my call sign, it would say, welcome, WB4APR. Now, remember when I first said you could put this on your repeater, and I could see a couple of guys roll their eyes. Last thing we want to hear is somebody just randomly come on up with DTMF tones and not identifying himself. Well, the whole concept of APRSTT was you don't have to identify yourself because when you send in the tones, of course, the output of the repeater mutes. But then the APRSTT puts on the repeater says, welcome, W4APR. Okay? So the only thing that's changed is it's not your voice, and it's that, but the whole world, not just the people who have to be on the air at that instant are listening. And of course, once it has done that, not only are you're on the map, but the guy who checks in 3 minutes later can send, there's a 2-digit code, I think it was 11 because on the original Kenwood's, the one key was the QZ key. How about QRZ, right? So if somebody just randomly keys up on your, you know, they are not a DTMF user, and they just come on the air, and then they know they just turned on their radio, they can key their radio, and because they want to do a manual report, they can say W4APR listening, and then send the 11, which is QRZ, and that device will come back and say, W4APR is listening, you know, and then give you a list of calls that have identified within the last 10 minutes. Okay, so again, it's a way of putting stuff. Now, I wonder if I have to do a read. Oh, that'll work out easy. Oh, okay. Now, so the original concept of APRS was totally two-way, and that is, say you're tracking, you put this at a marathon, and you simply tell that thing, keep track of the lead, L-E-A-D, lead. Now then, you do have, let's say, a tracker, or somebody is using APRS to plot the movement of the lead runner. You've all had voice text, and somebody will say, well, the lead just passed checkpoint 13. 5 minutes later, we all don't dead reckon very well in our heads. We don't know where the lead runner is. We know that 5 minutes ago we went through checkpoint 13, but we don't know where he is now. Whereas the APRS knows where the lead runner is, and APRS-Touch-Tone then knows where the lead runner is, and so it can periodically, once a minute, on that DTMF voice channel for the people who are too cheap to buy an APRS radio, it will say, lead is 3.5 miles northeast of 13. Okay, so on this DTMF channel, not only did DTMF users able to send in data, but then they could request data coming back from the APRSTT engine because it's running on a PC with a voice synthesizer. And it's no different than checking your messages. So remember, you can send messages to somebody. So a DTMF user turns on the radio in his car, he keys in, check my mail, whatever that DTMF code is, and the APRSTT engine says, I got 3 messages for AC7II, and then you key in 3, and it speaks that message to you. Okay? And it's again, it's using what we've already got. And everybody's got a DTMF radio. And it's not that painful to, to talk to a system. Kids do it all the time. My son, I got an example here. My son, we had a 40-mile run along the Appalachian Trail with 150 runners. My son started at the finish walking back towards the start. Every time he passed a runner, now he was using a full APRS radio. Every time he passed a runner, he would just key in the next 3 digits. Saw another runner, key in the next 3 digits. Saw another. When he got to a full message, which was about 10 call signs, he would hit send. And now, back at net control, we would have a list of every runner that passed his position at that time. Oh, he keyed in a time for when he started. So now, if anybody came up and said, where's my dad? He's number 123. You just look at this list of messages. In fact, I'll show it to you here in a minute. Find 1, 2, 3 and said, okay, at 10:13, he had just passed this point. So my biggest frustration with APRS is nobody uses it for anything useful. Or they just think that you just got to buy a bunch of trackers and put them on every single move, and then we just sit back and watch those things move. And most of the time, those are the things you don't care about where they are. Nobody cares where you are, except your wife and your girlfriend. So so that's what's frustrating about APRS. So that's why I said we've got to start using these tools that we have. So now let's get into my prepared remarks. Any questions? By the way, you're a Dave. Oh, yeah. Do you have a David memory? No. That is the null position. There you go. All right. So let's see if we can go back to the jail.
Why was you want to go back to
Well, let's go to where haven't we been yet? We never let's go to Bear Lake. See if we ever get there. So anyway, I'll call up. Okay, so now, the last 2 times I've come in here and talked about electric car and solar, and I still kept here at 9 o'clock. But first time I gave you the full APRS presentation, and I still kept you at 9 o'clock. So I'm not going to give you every slide. I'm just going to hit the high points. And so, no, that's the agenda of who's going to talk. Again, one of my frustrations is there are 26 different systems in amateur radio that we use for texting. 26. And yet, ham radio operators still will not text message. Well, except when you have a smartphone. Oh, no problem. You know, I spent $800 for this thing. But anyway, my frustration since the year 2000 was why don't all these things text message together? So that a text message sent from any ham radio device somebody has in their pocket will get to any other call sign anywhere on the planet, independent of what device he has. And the common denominator is the APRS network. And we're pretty good. You know, there's applications running on your cell phone where you can send and receive APRS messages. There's applications running on your laptops to send and receive APRS messages. And I've had DTMF now. I've been talking about that for 13 years. But you know, here's a frustration. Echolink. How do you set up an Echolink thing? With your touch-tone keypad. why doesn't Echolink listen for this DTMF call sign that you pre-programmed in, so that now Echolink knows who you are electronically, and then that'll put you on the list of active Echolink nodes, and so now anybody in the world knows how to talk to you. Okay, and he said, yeah, but he said that 8 years ago, and I keep waiting for him to implement it. I checked with the All-Star guy. No, do y'all have an All-Star node here? Do y'all do that out here? He says, great idea. He's implemented it, but not that many people use All-Star. D-Star leapfrogged ahead of all of us because D-Star has universal call sign to call sign voice contact. Just enter a call sign, say you want to talk to them on D-Star, and the link will be set up. That's what I've been saying since 2001. We can do, and we could have done it since 2001 because we've got all these other VoIP systems. We've got APRS that knows where everybody is, and the VoIP systems know how to connect to their users, and so just get the two talking to each other and it's done. But still talking about it.
By the way, you are a Bear Lake.
I am. Let's go back and now I got to figure out how to get there.
Off channel.
Minimize that. I don't know what that means. And now we go to here. Why didn't this take?
You're right at Garden City.
Do a refresh. Oh, because this is now just a map of Dayton that I happen to. No.
Oh, you lost wireless. You got wireless there.
Okay. Are unable to find a certificate. Did I need to?
It's not logging now.
Well, that's a good question. I didn't do anything except walk in this room. Do I have to enter a password or anything?
It's gonna have
It might have it from last year. Ah, okay.
You keep saying anywhere in the world. I thought I read in one of your things it only goes through 3 relays and stops.
Oh, but we prefer only goes through 2 RF. Somewhere in that range, then it goes into an internet gateway, such as W7BOZ's iGate over there, and that sends it to the internet and goes worldwide.
Thank you.
Well, something like that. So anyway, that's one of my frustrations. There we go. Nope. Via GD Hill. Oh, that's the call sign that's in the radio out in the lobby. Don't let me forget that radio.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah.
What radio?
What's GD Hill? That is one of the 15 stations along the Appalachian Trail where every year we try to do a 2,000-mile APRS message. Live, going along the Appalachian Trail. I don't know why this thing hasn't,
You do love Dayton.
did it go, is yours?
Mine still says your date.
Mine's showing the same thing yours is, so.
Huh, that's it.
Might want to move
What
the
do you
radio
smoke?
out there a little hair off on the best.
Well, there's something in Bear Lake, but it's not me.
You?
Okay, so yeah, we'll go back to prepared remarks.
I 7. It says, sit.
Is it a 7?
WW17.
Oh, I see.
Is she back? Is she back?
That's the one that's in Bear Lake. Maybe by October.
I bet it went today.
Unless you got Garden City.
Okay, so anyway, well, let's go back to this.
Have a little moment at home.
But anyway, what I'm hoping is, what I've wanted since 2001 is so that you can set up your events so that every single person with a radio can actually enter data into the system, and not just the 5% who have APRS, because if only 5% are doing it, it's not really providing any practical value. Even though nowadays everybody with a smartphone can receive APRS data out in the field, maybe if you're within range of the network. So anyway, in anticipation of this ability to communicate with anybody anywhere on the planet because you have APRSTT to say, or APRS to say what call sign you want to connect to, and then all these other VoIP systems. The one thing that I realized we left out of the original APRS was the third dimension of communications. Dimension number 1 and 2 are, where are you? And we use lat long to find out where you are. But what's the other most important dimension in ham radio? What frequency you're going. Okay? So we added that 10 years ago. And still most people haven't picked up on that concept. But Kenwood and Yaesu have done it. It's built in all these radios now. That when you're using your APRS radio, in your position report to everybody else, it includes the frequency of the voice side of your radio. So now you just look at an APRS list of stations and you'll see what frequency everybody's on. So now you can talk to them. We're not talking about the APRS frequency. Everybody knows they're on 144.39. It's what channel is the human monitoring. The whole idea is human-to-human communications. So, yes, unless you're scanning. And then you'll see a frequency over there and you go call that guy and he's not there because it sent out that, at that instant, the instant that packet went out, it sent out that frequency. So I asked Kenwood to change that and to, if it's scanning, to just put in the word scanning. I got some pushback from Kenwood that says, yeah, but that doesn't give any information. Whereas if it sends out at least one frequency that radio is scanning, you can still go to that frequency and just call and call and call like you're on 20 meters until his radio comes around and you contact him. However, my answer to that was, if he's scanning and he's a local ham, then he's going to hit one of these local repeaters too, and so I'll just call it a local repeater and eventually I'll get it. So anyway, Kenwood has added it, Yaesu has added it. In addition, now, when you see anybody in your list that has a frequency over here, you just push the tune button and your radio instantly tunes to that guy's frequency. Same way in the Yaesu, it's called QSY button. You hit the QSY button and it'll QSY to the station that's in the list. I had to put that in there for the two reasons, to establish communication. But hidden in there, not turned on yet, is the fact that we can send a message to a packet to this radio and force it to go to that frequency. Or go to a frequency. Because remember, the whole concept was, I want to talk to a guy in Kalamazoo, and I know his call sign, and I just say, I want to talk to that guy. The automatic voice relay system engine, which somebody writes the software, sends a message to me that tells me what frequency to go to for my local Echo Link or All-Star or whatever. Sends a message to him, tells him what frequency to go to, and then we both go there and now we can talk, because the Echo Link system sets up the link. But I wanted the radios to be able to be put into automatic mode so that when that message went out that says go to this Echo Link node, your radio will go there. So all you had to do with APRS was say, this is the call sign I want to talk to, and then sit back and wait for the phone to ring. Right? That's been the concept for the last 10 years. Kenwood and Yaesu have responded. I still haven't found one person on the planet to write a little simple engine that's sitting there listening for the messages coming in, and then Echo Link and All-Star and those guys to give the hooks to where we tell them to set it up. Actually, but, you know, we're getting there after 10 years. APRS, called Automatic Voice Relay System, has been written. It doesn't do this automatic stuff, but the one thing that it does do is you can send a message. You know, you take your APRS radio, send a message instead of to a call sign, you send it to APRS, enter. And the APRS engine, which is currently running in Atlanta, will get that message, and it'll come back and it will send you a list of the 3 nearest Echo Link or All-Star, there's a third one.
IRLP.
Or RLP node. So that's half the system now. So now, right here on your radio, as a stranger in Logan, I see the frequencies for Echo Links that are closest to me. So that's already implemented. Give it a try sometime. You might have to look up the format. It might be send a message to APRS and then put in the number 3, and it'll come back and tell you what the nearest 3 are. I can't remember how it formats that. All right, so now back to the pairing box. You notice how I just love listening to that noise. And of course, everybody knows that the control head of a Kenwood radio, you just simply unplug it from Kenwood radio and plug it into any other radio that has the DIN connector on the back, because all the APRS functionality is in the control head. None of it's in the radio. Which means you can attach that to a $50 HT. And so when you take the control head out of your car because you're worried about leaving it in the parking lot, you bring your control head into your desk drawer, hook it up to an HT, and you can continue to operate APRS with your control head. I'm very excited now that for the last 5 years or so now, everybody who makes a tracker now makes the trackers two-way. And that's what APRS was all about. It was never about one-way broadcast. That's just an anathema to amateur radio. What good is an amateur radio operator out there if you can't communicate with it? So, so half that concept is, now at least they're driving around out there and we can see what frequency they're on. And you can do that even in a one-way tracker. And guess what frequency everybody's on? 5.2. Because that's what they put into their memory on their one-way tracker, which doesn't know what radio frequency to really listen to. You call him on 5.2 and he's never there. Okay. So that's why I like the Kenwood and Yazoo, where the radio tells that packet what frequency you're on. But anyway, all these trackers now, you can buy little display devices. There's the all-in-one. YAG tracker has a display. TG4 has a display. Archer Data System has a display. And of course, all the ones with a display, the text is displayed there, and the GPS that you're connected displays where everybody else is. So for a $50 tracker, $50 two-way tracker, and they're $20 add-on display, now and the GPS that you've already had, now you've got full APRS capability like the $600 Kenwood radio does, but you spend about 50 bucks, I don't know, under 100 bucks to do it. But you got to cobble all that stuff together. But again, like I say, there's all kinds of devices now that are, the whole idea of APRS was to give information to the mobile operator, not the opposite, which is what everybody did that went out and bought trackers. Nobody cares where you are, but you care where other things are. Now, a little aside, do y'all have any caves out here? Okay, anybody do cave rescue? Okay, well we all know that radio don't work in caves. And so, all my life I've said, well, but they do work, but they only work, 400 feet or so. But with APRS, we can link these together. So first, and I spent my youth in caves, but then I joined the Navy, and the Navy doesn't have caves, so I haven't done any caves for years. But so I said, well, it's got to be a waveguide effect. So I looked at the width of a typical passageway and says anything above 100 hertz would go through this passageway. Anything above 150 megahertz would go in that thing. And this big passageway, you can communicate 6 meters through that one with waveguide theory. Problem is, it doesn't work at all. It is not a waveguide effect. Absolutely is not. But every one of us has got to go down there and prove it to ourselves that yeah, it doesn't work. So what we did is I proposed a test in Mammoth Cave where we would just try to get 14 people with the FT, what is this thing? D72, because this thing's a digipede. And so we've got 14 of these radios. We just go down through Mammoth Cave and we just keep walking until we start losing the signal. Leave somebody's radio there and keep walking. Leave a radio there. Actually, everybody would leave an operator there because nobody's going to leave their radio just sitting there. And we should be able to communicate 14 hops underground. And at 14 hops of about 700-800 feet, we should be able to go a mile underground. Nobody's ever done that. Okay? So, how many people in the entire eastern United States could I get to come down on a weekend and go to Mammoth Cave and bring their D72? Three. So then I started looking around my office to see how many D700s I had laying around. I came up with a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 D700s. I borrowed them from the EOC. I borrowed them from everywhere. And so these are D700 digipeders, and then these are the HTs putting in there. So we go down to okay, with all these boxes, and we were entirely successful. We entered from the elevator. Actually, what's not, I should put it on here. There's a guy back here at National Park, Mammoth Cave headquarters in their break room. Coke machine, everything, because he's going to be there for several hours. He's sitting in there with a telephone and everything else, so he can talk to the park rangers and everything else. He's topside. So he can hear this digipeder, just one of those boxes, sitting on a shelf by the top of the elevator. We go down the elevator, and not more than 340 feet, is what they call the snowball room. And it's a room 3 times bigger than this room, and it's got this many picnic tables, and that's where people come in and buy snow cones and sit in there and eat snow cones. So we used that as the base of operation, and then we just started going down this passageway, and every time we lost a signal, we'd leave a digipeater and we'd keep going. 4 hours later, we were still here, couldn't figure out what was wrong. And you know, trying to work on the fly with 10 people looking over your shoulder and a menu of 500 things. Finally found the wrong setting, and then once we got that fixed, well, actually what we did was we put that in place, went till we no longer heard that one, went until we no longer heard that one, got all the way down here. And then this guy back here, we were never seeing him. Well, it turned out we were hearing this one, but this one wasn't digital. But we were hearing it, so we thought everything was fine, but it wasn't, because that one wasn't digital. So once we went back and fixed that, boom, we got all the way till we ran out of boxes here at number 10. And also ran out of patience of the ranger. You know, he had to, they got a path this wide and you cannot step off that path, or you violated all kinds of rules. Because, you know, they are really trying to preserve caves now in their pristine condition. So when we wanted to put one of these on the shelf, the ranger would go over there and look, make sure there were no artifacts, no dinosaur bones, no anything else, and then he would let me take 2 steps off the path and put this thing on the side of it. So anyhow, then the next day I convinced him, let me go back down there. Oh, I didn't take a picture of it. Let me go back down there to this entrance, go in back to this place, because now we've recovered all. So anyway, with a total of 13 digipeaters, we covered the full mile length. Now, and it's not just like, you know, Ham's been doing Earth penetration communications forever. They use HF. The lower the better. You know, use 160 meters or 80 meters, and you can go down hundreds of feet easily. But the problem is, you got to know where the guys are in the cave to do that, and then it's only one point to one point. The value of this is, once you've walked through and established these radios, you can be anywhere along that mile of cave, and you can be talking to anybody in the world with text messaging, and your wife back home can see where you are. You say, well, and GPS doesn't work underground. Notice what I've done. I've done the same thing I do for APRSTT, Touch-Tone. I overlay whatever grid area I'm going to be in with a grid, and now with a 2-digit number, well in this case a 3-digit number, I can put myself anywhere on the map for reporting. Anyway, so much for that. Which is kind of interesting though. It is very, very humbling to have all this radio stuff that we know can communicate for tens and hundreds of miles and be able to barely, with 14 of them, talk 1 mile. Considering that, every year now we're trying to do this 2,000 miles with the same 14 radios, where each link is 100 miles. Okay, and we still didn't make it this year. We're getting close. This year, the guy that screw up was 1 year I was a screw up right in the middle. This year, I'm right there. This year, that guy screwed up. So, but at least now we've really got it nailed. And it's just so much fun, you know, setting up your paths. Just go to Google Earth, put a pin in there, and you can look at you trace the where the ray path is going to go. Pick out your parking spot. You know, you can zoom in and say, okay, I want the 3rd parking spot from the right, because that's just amazing. And of course, there's free propagation model. So once you've got your 2 endpoints identified, you can see what the probability of success is. Now here's one. This is a topic you can use in your, when y'all do an event with APRS, do you stay on 144.39? Do you move everything to a different frequency, or what do you do? Stay on 39? Okay, but one thing you can do to triple or more your performance is to leave everything on 39, but have all the mobiles and the handhelds and everything else transmit in on 99. And now change your, put up a couple temporary digipeaters or listening on 99 and outputting on 39. The advantage to that is everybody still, everything you want to see is on 144.39, but the mobiles and the runners and the people, when they transmit up, they're not competing with any other packets from anywhere in Utah or the world or anything else, or even the other people at the event. And so the performance improves. So this was that 40-mile run in Maryland, and here's the difference. So prior to the event, a guy went up there, and the blue dots, he was transmitting on 144.39. Normal guy was an HT walking along the athletic trail. And you see hits, large gap, hit. This was almost an hour without knowing where that guy was, or more than an hour. Each one of these is every 5 minutes. A couple of hits here, and well, obviously why? He's on the right side, just came over to the red top of the hill, and then no more hits until he got to the finish line. Right? Now, the next day he went up there, and all he did was switch his transmit packets to transmit plus 600, and then we changed the 2 local digipeaters to listen on 99 and transmit on 39. And you see tripled his performance. Okay, now here's the example of where my son was walking down the trail with this thing, and he would enter, these are, you know, you can go to APRS.fi and see what messages people are sending. So here at 1333, these are the runners that he had passed by, within the last 10 runners he had passed by. We don't know the exact time because he actually entered the time when he started this message. So actually that was the time of his first runner, and then however many minutes behind before he got up to a total of 10 runners. And those 10 messages that he transmit has every runner in the event. Because remember, he was going the opposite direction, so he's only going to pass each runner once. And I would never ask an old FUD ham to do this, because the old FUD ham's going to say, I'm not an internet kind of jump on this touch-tone pad. Give it to somebody under 30, he said, let me have it. Or I'll do it on my smartphone. Yeah. So anyway, works very well. What are we doing? We're just using APRS for communications, not just tracking. Now, let me just keep going. If anybody hadn't seen, that's kind of what that's what the Dayton parking lot looks like, or the flea market area looks like. Now you got to remember, there's parking lots going all the way down here, parking lots going all the way over here, parking lots going over that way, and there's another 300 mobiles out there. You can see where the people are parked. All the things that you do with APRS. Now here's a frustration. Remember, I've been trying for 14 years to do this APRS, where we marry APRS as the signaling system, dialing the phone, as you say, and any of these VoIP systems to make the end-to-end connectivity. And of course, D-Star can already do that. So what I'm saying is, all we need is one person to write a little software that runs in this, what I call an A-Star node, and it has the D-Star vocoder dongle. You know, you can buy that for whatever it is, plug it into the USB port, and now this laptop becomes a D-Star voice, speaker, microphone node. You can talk to anybody on the planet by call sign. But instead of using the internal mic and speaker, connect that up to a normal, repeater. So now all you've done is you've implemented the D-Star algorithms and everything else in the computer, but instead of using the speaker and microphone, you now have a repeater, which then extends that voice link out to the analog voice user. How does the analog voice user say who he's talking to? He sends in who he wants to, in an APRS packet. And how does he know who's talking? Because this thing knows who's talking, because it's a D-Star network, and that sends out for display on the front panel of your radio who's talking. So the APRS radio, with its display capability for data coming in and its ability to send out data, does all the communications and call sign setup. So what I call this is an A-Star node, and it'll allow any APRS configured mobile to talk to any D-Star user on the planet just by knowing their call sign and their words. You can't get any traction in the D-Star camp because, let's see, are they Republicans and analogs are Democrats, or are the D-Stars are Democrats? But anyway, they won't talk to each other. And no way will they allow that lousy analog signal to get into their system. So you got to find, we're still trying to find somebody that's an independent. Okay, got a foot in both camps and says, no, we got people who need to communicate. They've got a call sign. That's all we should know to be able to communicate. Now, what device do they have to make that communication possible? So anyway, now you know about the APRS CQ server. If I send a message right now to CQ server and say CQ Mormons, okay. Now that message that I send out will go to everybody on the planet who has also sent out a message to CQ Mormon. All right? So in one sense, just by sending that message once every 24 hours, you have formed a reflector that every message from anybody else that goes in comes out to everybody else. So it's an automatic, so we use that on CQ, on field day, CQ field day. And on field day, sure enough, you can send a CQ field day message and it'll go out to everybody in the world who has sent a CQ field day message. And we've had that for 10 years. This last field day, 16 people in the entire world, showed up at field day and said, oh, I'll just go ahead and see send in my CQ and see what's going on. Well, the reason is because, of course,
Space or that?
CQ dash whatever. Now again, if you're the last guy to send that message in, everybody else will get that message. Oh, you'll get a message back from the CQ server that says 13 messages sent out, so you'll know how many other people got it. Now, in order, this could be a nuclear bomb to the APRS network because one packet goes everywhere in the world. So you can only do this once every 30 minutes. But that's all a CQ is. You send out that CQ, it goes to everybody else who sent it, and then from then on, you will get those similar messages coming back from anybody else. Now, the way you're supposed to use it as field day is that doesn't count as contact. You both call it CQ. But once you see somebody else that's done it, now you have his call sign. And once you have somebody's call sign, you can send him a message to his call sign anywhere on the planet. You get an act, and you can chat back and forth. So again, it's only a CQ type system. But it's there, and you can use it for anything. CQ Scouts, CQ Saturn, the Salvation Army, so that anybody that's doing Saturn stuff, CQ Red Cross, CQ Red, for example. And then everybody who's playing Red Cross that day, anywhere in the world, can all communicate with each other. Right to their handheld. Here's APRS-Touch-Tone, and I've already said it. There's my call sign. I put it in the memory. When the local device hears that DTMF, here's what it does to it. It takes my call sign, makes a message out of it, puts on the path, puts on in the position of the device that heard this, the local repeater, and then puts in the frequency of the device that heard it, and then usually some other added text that you've said, add this to every touch-tone packet that comes in. So again, just by sending a call sign to the APRSTT engine when I'm in Dayton, what everybody else in the world sees is my position in Dayton, what frequency I'm monitoring, and then I'm at Hamvention. All I did was push those keys. Now, so this is what's in that box. It happens to be in a KPC3 case, because I've got a lot of those. I buy the case and then toss out the KPC3. And because the KPC3 is what's flying in PC set for the last 14 years or something. So anyway, this is the Tiny Track 4. It costs about 50 bucks, I think, I'm not sure. Tiny Track 4. And this is the new add-on DTMF card. So this thing, ribbon cable there, and now you've got a radio port for the DTMF radio and the CW responses. And then this is the APRS radio for putting the packets over on the APRS. This other stuff is he hasn't implemented that lookup table of 0 to 99 positions, and I wanted to use it for a marathon, so I added an external little chip. This is just a chip turned upside down that parses those things, looking for those 2-digit positions, and then sending out an APRS position to the fourth port. But then again, a normal APRSTT engine is not going to do this. And the other exciting thing is Brian at Bionics is dedicated to this project. So now I know I finally found somebody who's just going to keep moving this thing forward. So that's what's behind the curtain back there. And the whole concept is now, normally only 5% of the geeks over here in your club can play APRS at an event. But now everybody in the club can do it because they send in data and they hear the voice responses. However, in the little thing that we're putting into the APRS, the Bionics version, is not going to have all that response capability. It's just going to mostly be used for data input and then the acts coming back. Now, here's what it looks like on your local map. So this is our local repeater that has an APRS-Touch-Tone DTMF input. So if you send nothing but your call sign, which remember is just 2 key presses, boom. Then I would show up, on the map And usually, it's going to be the first person, there's going to be an origin somewhere. And you'll start building that list upward and then building the list downward. And then and it's kind of a first in, first out, so that eventually that list times out and anybody new comes in, it overwrites. But you'll always have a list of the people who are on the air using DTMF, and it shows you what frequency they're on, because that's where they were heard. Okay, so that's the whole concept. Here's the little 3x5 index card we hand out at Dayton, and say you can report yourself anywhere in this grid, and this uses the B1 format, which 1 means 1 digit of lat long. So if there's where my location is, my flea market thing, so my position is simply 1-5. So I send B15 star, and then hit memory, and it sends out my call sign. And you saw that previous map. Everybody in the world can see it. Now, everybody been to Dayton? Okay. Well, everybody knows that the only place there's any trees, there's a little square here where the trees are. So that's what I call the TT corral, touch-tone corral. And that is, if you send nothing but your call sign, you don't enter any of these positions, instead of putting you right here in the middle of this intersection, which would be the 0-0 position, it says if I hear a call sign and I don't have a position, it puts it over here in the TT corral, and we put that in the trees so everybody knows there's nobody over there in the trees. So that's obviously the list of call signs that haven't transmitted a position before. Yeah, there it is. So here's the TT corral, people who have not transmitted a position. There's the location of the APRS-Touch-Tone engine, the little black box, so people can know, okay, all I got to do is hit that thing. And here's a guy who actually transmitted a 0 position. All right, now, in the Dayton manual, the Dayton handbook, this is the map of the entire Dayton area. So you can find your hotel and you can all go meet at a restaurant or whatever. And so I simply draw a lat long grid to the nearest minute of latitude, and so you can put yourself anywhere on the map with the same 4 digits that I was using here. And so this is the Air Force Museum, the coordinates of that would be 4707. The Hare Arena is 1549. So again, a DTMF user could just report to all his buddies whenever he's in Dayton. And you don't have to keep doing it on a voice repeater that's always busy. You just send it out once, everybody sees where you are. And even if they weren't monitoring when you sent that out, you go to APRSTT and they can see that, well, the last time you reported in, you were down there at the, whatever. So, I've talked, here's an example where we're at an event and we've got 3 voice networks. We've got one on 446 simplex, we've got one on 147.51 simplex, and we got one up here on 146.52 simplex. We've got 3 nets going on. If every person, when he moves to that net, simply send in, actually I'm going to change to the shorter call sign, because this is a, boom, that's all I got to do. And I didn't send a position report, but APRSTT is going to put me in the TT corral around that frequency where I was heard. So now, the APRS tactical picture lets you see what frequency people are currently on. When a guy QSOI to a different frequency, he can send in that DTMF report. Now, here's another use of APRS at an event, and that is, this one is a Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts. 10 stations and 10 stations where all these scouts go to every 45 minutes, then the horn blows, and then they all move to the next station. And so every troop gets a score at a station. 3 things of information. So, what? Somebody sending me messages? Okay. So I can actually turn this down. Notice that APRS is a 2-way system. But it is only a 2-way system if the operator reads his messages. Good talk.
And reply.
Right. And that's another frustration. You can send messages to these jerks all the time, and eventually it says his buffer is full because he hasn't checked the messages in his mobile for the last since he bought the radio. And he doesn't know how to read them, and he doesn't know how to clear them. So anyway. So, good set of hams, good set of volunteers, does this every year. And they show up with their IC2 ATs. Is that what? And their IC 02 HT, remember that's the first HT that came out in 1975? They still show up with that thing. But at least it has a touch-tone keypad. All right, but anyway, so they've been doing this voice reporting, and you know how long it takes to take the reports from 30 different troops at 20 different stations with a troop number and a call sign. And as a ham radio operator, you're stuck having to listen to that. And that's the problem with voice nets is that although 99% of the traffic is not for you, a lot of your brain has to be engaged to listen to that chatter in case something is for you. And it makes you very ineffective for what you're supposed to be doing. But of course, as ham radio, you're supposed to have your earphones on your head and do nothing but listen to all that stuff. And that's what your job is. But you know, we all have other jobs when we're out there at these events. So the whole value of APRS is to move the data without making everybody always has to listen. And I was sure that the old FUDs that were doing this, no way were they ever going to let me come in with APRS. But the net control operator who sits there and listens to all these net things coming in and writes them down on a piece of paper and then passes that over to somebody with a PC to type it in. He said, yeah, well, I'll do it. So here's all we did. We gave him a what's that called? Clipboard. We put the D700 on the clipboard, and then out in the field, here I am station number 7 in this radio. I send the message, 874-42, send. Okay? I have just reported from station 7 the troop number 874 and the score 42. His radio beeps, but he's busy doing other things. He's talking and everything else. But he doesn't have to stop what he's doing and take that message. It's in the radio. So anytime he wants to, he just hits the message button, and now he has a list of all these reports that have come in. And at his leisure, when there's nobody yelling at him, he can hit that. He sees the message, writes it down, and that's the whole value of getting to digital information is the sender sends it at his convenience and then he forgets about it. He doesn't have to listen, doesn't have to pay any attention. All he knows is he sent it. Net control automatically receives it, and at his convenience, at a gap, which none of us in the field know. We never know when net control is not busy. Okay? But at net control, he knows when he's not busy, and he just looks at the information, writes it down, does whatever he has to. He loved it. Here's a guy over 60 who loved it. So we've done that. So the next year, we had 2 of these radios, so 2 of us were doing the position report. And about the 3rd or 4th year, I said, we can use APRS-Touch-Tone. But back at that time, we didn't have this device. But you can download a touch-tone decoder and run it on any laptop, set your HT beside it, and the DTMF software will just display codes coming in, and it's just a numeric number. So all we got to send is 7, and then a star. I like to use star for a comment. 7 star 874 star 42, and we've done the same thing. And on the laptop at Net Control, we have implemented exactly what we need for this event that's been going on for 30 years, and none of that went on the voice, and everybody has a DTMF HT. So I showed up. Now, try to get talking about getting them to use APRS, that's one thing. Try to get them to use a DTMF keypad is another whole exercise. Except that, guess what? That year that I brought in DTMF, every single person had an APRS radio. So actually, they weren't going to use DTMF because they could just use the APRS radio, and they got the axe and they knew it was delivered and everything else. So ever since then, we haven't done the DTMF, and now we got APRS-Touch-Tone, so we can. But anyway, here's another thing. Just as I was driving out to Dayton, and I was talking about how I can report my position, with 2 digits or maybe 3, and a guy says, "That's exactly what we need for SAR. We use the UTM grid, and we only use the middle 3 digits because the middle 3 digits can locate anybody within a 10-kilometer area to the nearest 100 meters, which is close enough for knowing where your teams are. Not for knowing, where we just found a shoe, but for knowing where your teams are. So most of their voice chatter uses a 6-digit number, which is a 3x3 grid. That's perfect for APRS-Touch-Tone. So again, that's the next thing that'll be added in this device is you just enter in the 6-digit UTM grid, boom, the whole world sees where that radio team is, and they just did it with Touch-Tone.
What does SAR stand for?
Search and rescue. Here's something we built, and that is, like I said, you can, for $1, you can buy a little RFID card, credit card, and for the longest time, we couldn't figure out how big of this coil do you make it so that when somebody walks through the door, you record it. And then we said, well, he pulls his wallet out and, does that by the door as he goes in. And then we realized, put it in his shoe. His shoe is always going to step on the mat as he goes through the door, and now you can make the coil this big. And in fact, you can make the coil this big and spray paint a yellow dot on the mat there, because if the guy has gone to the trouble to put this credit card in the shoe, he's going to look for that red dot and he's going to nail it every time. And when he does that, boom, everybody in the world saw that he just entered the EOC, or he just entered the clubhouse. And you say, well, but where's his position information? Well, duh. It's right there. So it takes the RFID tag number, which has previously been associated to your call sign. And so no matter where that RFID shows up, it gets converted to your call sign and you're put on the APRS stamp where you did it. So we did this today. This is what the $6 maps from the Kmart, painted the yellow thing on it and made a number of these. And so we could get you, no matter which building you came in to at the Hera Arena, we would know which building you were in. Haven't done it since. I mean, if you're going to the EOC, usually every other ham in the area is at the EOC already, right? So, but anyhow, the potential is there. And a lot of people say, well, that's just, what's the phrase? That is just a solution looking for an application. Yes, okay, but at least it's something in the toolbox. Oh, and what does it take to set up I don't think I have a picture. No. Winding a coil, a $19 RFID reader, which already has a 9600 baud output. Plug that into a KPC3 TNC, hook it up to a radio, and you've done. All the software has been done, and everything else. So $19 and a little coil, and you can RFID ham radio operators going in and out of anywhere. Everybody out here knows what voice alert is? Do you all use it? Okay. You don't understand? Voice alert simply means is we got this dual band radio. We got one side dedicated to voice, the other side dedicated to APRS. What did everybody used to do the APRS side? Turn the volume down. Don't want to hear those packets. You're wasting a perfectly good radio. Not only that, but you absolutely know that every APRS operator has a radio that's listening on that frequency with the speaker turned off. Duh. So about 10 years ago, we realized, turn the volume up and set CTCSS 100. So now you're driving around, you're listening on your voice channel, your radio is silently pulling in all these packets, APRS is working, but you can be contacted by anybody in simplex range of you by just setting CTCSS PL100 and giving you a call on the data channel. It's like a third radio. We call it voice alert. Because when you call the guy, you got to say voice alert. Because if you call him and say, "Hey Joe," he's over there listening to this voice repeater. He's going to call you back on that one because it came out of the same speaker. He doesn't know that you called him on APRS. You got to say, "Hey Joe, voice alert." Now he knows he's got to go to the left side of his radio and respond to you, and then y'all negotiate a frequency you go to and you do. But usually what you do is say CQ voice alert, or if you do. Say, "Hey Joe, voice alert, go to 5.2. And then you just go straight to 5.2 immediately. But again, it's human-human contact. We're probably done. Oh, do y'all do DFing very much out here? DF events, Fox hunts?
Fox hunts, yeah.
Okay. How many of you have DF equipment? Everybody in this room has DF equipment. And that's the number one most frustrating thing to me is that, we got per chunkers. Now out here, of course, in Utah, you don't have anybody that's a jerk on the radio. And so you don't have to go find out where the signal's coming from. But there are interfering signals that sometimes you have to go after. But when the interfering signal is on the air, he's not home, doesn't have his equipment, and you need to know where the thing is. Well, geez. back when we first invented APRS, now 20 years ago, we thought there were 3 applications. Knowing where people were, weather data, because everybody has a home weather station, and direction finding. Because now you can, as a group, coordinate your data and quickly nail somebody. All right? But of course, what do? We did like every DFer. We said, let's interface the Doppler thing to this thing. Let's interface all this hardware to APR so we have automatic direction finding network. And then we soon realized it's the same old problem. Nobody has the equipment when they need it. Okay, this is called the, what am I talking about? DTFing by signal strength. Every one of these radios has a signal strength meter on it, right? So, you hear, this happened to be a fox hunt. It was the first one I ever attempted. I never left my house. All I did was, the event started. This is my location. I didn't hear the fox. So instantly, my APR station knows that the fox cannot be anywhere in this circle because it, remember I mentioned the dimensions of APR, of ham radio. There's that long, where are you? There's what frequency you're on, but what's the third one? What's the height of your antenna? Okay, so the height of your antenna was always in APRS because knowing your position and the height of your antenna above average terrain, I can draw a circle around your station. And APRS.FI, all APRS does that, shows you what the range of every station is. So since my station knows my radio range and knows that I don't hear the fox, it instantly draws a black circle around it. So then I get on the local repeater and I call a repeater over in this direction, over this area, and I says, anybody over there hear the fox? The fox was on 5.2, whatever the fox was on. And the guys would come back and say, well, I don't have any DF equipment. So I would ask him, can you hear the fox? Well, you know, all kinds of excuses. You waste 5 or 10 minutes convincing the guy, just go over to 5.2 and tell me if you hear the fox. So he eventually does that, and he comes back and says, well, I can't help you, I can't hear it. I said, that's information. That's valuable information. Because now I know that the fox cannot be heard from the location of this station. Now notice that it's off-center. Why? Because APRS includes in that height above average terrain, it also reports an offset if you have an offset antenna. So, so now instantly I had these 2 black circles. Already I knew then that the fox was probably not southwest of Baltimore. So then I started getting on other repeaters, and I would try to find somebody. And I found mobile. This is I-95 here, big interstate. And so I found a guy, the next guy reported was up here. He says, all I got is an HT. I can't help you. So you spend 5 minutes explaining to me, just go on. Dude, come here. Well, I can't help you. I don't hear anything. Great. Where are you? And so he says, you know, I'm up in northeast, you know, about ready to go into Delaware. So I put him on the map. And because he's a mobile, his height above average terrain is like 10 feet. So that's what Ma Bell uses as height above average terrain for a mobile telephone, 10 feet. So yeah, sure enough. Eventually, then I got another guy that driving on the interstate. I had to dial around, remember, the 100 repeaters just to find 5 ham radio operators on the air. 100 repeaters we've got in the Washington, Baltimore area, trying to find a human listening. But anyway, eventually I get these reports. Well, already I can see all the places where the fox isn't. So now I start dialing around repeaters up in this area. This guy, null report. And, you know, as a courtesy, I took a report from this guy, though I already knew that it wasn't out that way. Finally, I got a report, I believe it was this one right here, from a guy going out of the Beltway. He said, I got it pretty weak. So I put his position there. Now, the stronger the signal is, you know, my circle of hearing is this big. The stronger the signal is, means he's closer in. So in this case, when I get a non-zero report, the signal gets smaller. And the report is just 0 to 9. You know, how strong do you hear? 0 to 9. If it's 9, it's going to be a very small circle. So sure enough, eventually I got a guy who says, dead full quiet. And I can hear this guy absolutely. And said, where are you? He says, well, I'm mobile sitting in my driveway. And I said, well, what's your height above average terrain? Silence. So then you had to explain to him what height above average terrain. And I finally gave up and said, you're mobile, right? Okay, I'll give you 10 feet. So I had this little orange circle up here. And then I got 2 more reports. And there's a larger blue circle here because that's a weaker signal. So therefore the circle's a little larger. But notice that these circles are kind of intersecting. And forget this large orange circle, I still got this little orange circle way up here. That couldn't be. How could these guys be hearing him relatively strong, this guy hearing him super strong, and this guy hearing him weak? So I go back to this guy and say, now tell me again, you're sitting in your driveway, if you were to stand on your roof and look southwest, what would you see? Oh, I can see 30 miles. Back east, you can see 30 miles. Are you on a hill? Oh, yeah, you know, I can see 30 miles in that direction. So I said, all right, how high is your hill above surrounding area? And he said, I don't know, a couple hundred feet. So I gave him a 200-foot height above average terrain. That makes his dead full quality signal larger, and sure enough, now I got this intersection there. So I put that spot on the map, and I said, the box is probably right there. I was within a mile. Remember, I have never left my house. And I spent the entire event trying to explain to people what ham radio is about and what listening on the input for a jerk is about, and explaining to them that not hearing them is information. In fact, most of the information you're going to get back is to people who don't hear it, and that's your most valuable asset because that covers the biggest area. And yet, most of us, when we do that, if the guy can't hear it, we just ignore that information. So anyway, the idea was all this functionality was built into APRS-DOS, the original one, because all I had to do was put the location where the guy was, put his signal report, boom, APRS drew the map. The beautiful thing about APRS was everybody else running APRS could see this map developing. Nobody does. All right, so technique number 2 was, all right, I said, all right, if I'm the only person that's going to dead dragon, then I'm going to get my car, and I'm going to go find the fox. So this is what's called the fade circle technique. Anybody in the Civil Air Patrol? Okay? And this is what they use because they don't have direction finding equipment. They don't have anything in their radio. They don't even have a signal strength meter on it, but they got an airplane. So all you do is you come over the mountain, you take off, and you start flying until you start hearing the signal. You start hearing the down flyer. And you remember that point. You fly, signal's getting stronger. You just keep flying on one azimuth, signal's getting weaker. Lost it. Now you got 2 data points that are equal signal strength. Now you turn around, go back to roughly the middle where the signal is stronger, and now pick a direction, left or right. Fly, because now it's pretty strong. Fly this way, it's getting weaker and weaker and weaker. Don't turn around. You want to find that third point that is the same weak as the other ones are. But now once you find this weak spot, you now have 3 spots, and 3 spots makes a circle, and at the center of the circle is where the guy is. And of course, we all know that all he's using is an omni antenna. There's a lot of variability in here. So he flies back to where he thinks that center is, and now he comes down to 100 feet, or however low he can go. Bring in my radio while you're out there. He gets down to 100 feet and does the thing again, because now he only has to fly about 2 miles before he loses the signal. Comes back 2 miles until he loses the signal. Come back to the middle, go one way, lose the signal. Boom. Now he goes down even lower, or he disconnects his antenna or whatever to change the signal strength, and he does it again, and you can nail it. So I built that into APRS. All you do is drive down the road until you start hearing the fox, push the F5 key. Keep driving until you lose it, push the F5 key. Come back in the middle and go either direction until you lose it, push the F5 key. This thing automatically shows you where to go. Nobody uses it. None of the APRS clients, remember APRS-DOS was the original, none of the other APRS operators implemented this. It's not in authors, it's not in any of the other APRS programs, so again, we gave up on that. So here's what I do when I give, and you guys have heard me before on this, is when I go give a lecture that's on direction finding, I just take a little HT, put it on lowest power, wrap a rubber band around it, and set it out in a field on my way to give the lecture. So I go give the lecture and I say, okay, every one of you guys, when you leave here, I want you to go find my HT. I lost it on the way coming in here. I don't have my DF equipment. Let me run home first and get my DF equipment. And I said, no, you can do this. When you leave the clubhouse here, and sure enough, yeah, I can hear the signal. My HT's out there somewhere. Go find it. When you leave here, everybody's going to go down the main road. And I say, just go until you lose it. Turn around and come back the other way until you lose it. Come back to the middle and pick a direction until you lose it. In the center of that circle, that you're doing in your head, is about where that thing is. So sure enough, actually, as I was driving out to find this weak signal, I passed through a really strong signal here. Now remember, what I'm using at this point, you don't have to use the point like with Civil Air Patrol where the signal fades to nothing. You can use where the signal fades from, so when you start here, it's your signal's at 3 bars. Just go until the average signal is 3 bars. Go to another place where the average signal is 3 bars. Go to a third place where the average signal is 3 bars. And in the center of those points that you draw a circle is where the thing is. But again, anyhow, as I was going out here to find my 3 bars, of course, I went through an area of dead full gliding. Yes.
Well, that works in an open area, but we have mountains here, and get a question on the mountains, that complicates things.
Oh yeah, but over here, if you're on that side of the mountain, you don't hear him, then he's not over there. If he's on this side, now you still got the whole Cache Valley, you got to find him. All right, so anyway, but now, so when I came back to this center, now I looked for, I got dead full gliding bars. Now I look for the first place where I lose 1 bar. All right, so now I got full bars. So that's the first full bar location. Full bars, now I'm starting to lose full bars. Go back to the middle, go down this road. I got full bars, started to lose full bars. So I know now it's in this circle. So I come back to that circle, and it's dead full quiet. So what I do, I turn off my mobile radio, and I take the antenna off my HT. And now I can hear the signal very weak. But now I'm parked right here, and all I got to do is just hike a couple hundred yards up the road, you know, kind of moving this around. Okay, completely lost the signal. Walk 100 yards back this way, completely lost the signal. Walk 100 yards that way, completely lost the signal. Come back to the center. Now I've got a pretty good strong signal. Now what am I going to do to localize? And of course now you put it right here on your stomach, and you just do one of these. And you'll hear a null. It's that way. Now you walk that way, signal stronger, you do this thing again, and you hear where the null is, and you can just walk right there and hear it. The guy found our radio in 20 minutes. Now, the disadvantage of this technique is gas prices. But again, that's only when you use the fade, you know, when you've got to drive all the way until you get no bars, which is what the Civil Air Patrol guy has to do, but he's got plenty of it. So we have signal strength meters, so all you're doing is looking for 3 equal places with equal signal strength, go to the center of that, and now change what signal you're looking for, because it's going to be strong. Now, we do a lot of balloons. Here's where I did that technique. I'm almost done. A guy did things for school kids to launch balloons, and the balloons were a keychain transmitter kind of thing, and a 9-volt battery, and a plastic Coke bottle, a lot smaller than that one, and that was their balloon payload, and it was a throwaway then, because the keychain transmitter is what only was $14 back then. Now it's $3.98. Okay, transmits on 433 megahertz. So it was a throwaway. They launched it, and they had, you know, Yagi beams out there. Oh, and they had a 555 timer in there that the tone of the transmitter would tell you then what the temperature is. Whoopee, kids had a great time and everything else, and I said, hey, aren't you going to go chase it? We don't have any DF equipment with us. Let me go home and get my DF equipment. And I said, well, I'm going to find that Coke bottle. That, you know, I don't like that trash out there in that cornfield. So they were way down here at Wallops Island, NASA facility, and of course I couldn't hear this keychain transmitter, but I was just going to listen on my way back home. So I'm coming up here, I'm coming up this interstate, came up on top of an overpass, I heard it. Just something broke squelch on 433 megahertz. So I got off, and I went this way. We got weak. So that's the other way. Got off, that's wrong. Now these yellow dots are just something I've used paint to draw what, after the fact, what I was hearing. And so, you know, these are the spots, and it was a continuous carrier too, so, you know, I didn't have to wait for the transfer. But, you know, start hearing the signals getting stronger and stronger and stronger, getting weaker and weaker and weaker. Came back to where it was the strongest, and there was only one road, and it only went this far into this farmhouse. But the signal was getting strong. Now, this is in the winter. This event was in July, and the corn was, what, 15 feet high? And I was hot, sweating, it's 100 degrees outside, and you know, I'm a city slicker, so I'll just go through that cornfield and I'll find it. Well, so I started off, well, first of all, we walked it's got to be here, because as we got closer to the corn, the signal got worse. The signal was strongest right up against the guy's house. The signal was strongest right up against the guy's barn. It was weaker on the other side of the barn, it was weaker on the other side of his house. He said, it's up on his roof. But we could sit there and see his roof. It was not up there. Finally, I used a little bit of ham radio, and I realized what happens when a radio wave is coming over something, and then there's a hole. It kind of bends down a little bit, right? So what was happening is, the radio was coming across the 15-foot tall corn, am I exaggerating, 10-foot, whatever the height of the corn was. And it comes across the top of the tassels, and it bends down a little bit, and all piles up against the side of his house. So that's why the signal was stronger in his house. So I said, it's got to be out there in the cornfield. I'm going to go get it. And so I'm going to do this little technique of walking out there in my HT. Well, it didn't take me very long to find out that you only walk one way in the cornfield. So I said, I got to get out of here. But I could tell the signal was getting stronger, and so I just kept going. I finally saw some trees over here, you know, little trees up there. I said, gosh, I got out. But at least now, I knew that somewhere now I'd pass through a maximum, you know, just listening to it. So I said, well, I know it went back that way because that's kind of where I keep it. So I came around the cornfield. This is easy walking. Signal got real strong in here, got weak, came back to where the middle of the strongest was. So, okay, now I got to go in the cornfield. So now I'm going in the cornfield, and every time, in fact, here I was down to a paper clip for an antenna. Because you know, you need to keep reducing the sensitivity so you can hear the shh, shh, shh as you're in stronger weak. So then I got into here, and every now and then I'd go left and right, and sure enough, I was kind of in the center. Go a little more, go left and right. Now it's so strong, no antenna at all. And I got all the way into here, and it turned out well, because look at this. Where I went perpendicular in the field, you know, we're into it, and it worked. Now, here's what you got. The interesting thing is, you don't see it until you're 3 feet away. So I'm DFing to the nearest 3 feet with nothing but my HT. A transmitter that's no more than 4 milliwatts. And anybody can do it. You just got to decide you want to do it. We don't do that. People say, oh, I've got DF equipment. We can't find him. We'll just put up with this jerk on the repeater for the next 6 months until we all organize. And by then the guy says, oh, they're after me. So anyway, okay, one more story. So this one, now that was just, you know, a transmitter without APRS, without $150 worth of stuff that you put on this balloon that you're never going to see again. This one has the full enchilada, you know, a plastic, a 4-foot by 4-foot cooler styrofoam, an APRS transmitter, a GPS, the whole 9 yards. We'll fly it and we'll just go pick it up. Well, I was actually driving along underneath it, doing just fine. Well, I wanted to keep it a little bit in front of me so that I could see it coming down. And then everybody, balloon burst on the voice channel. Wow, it's coming down fast. Apparently, it's coming down real fast. And so now I'm driving at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour because now it's coming down faster than I'm making up that distance. So I wasn't within 5 miles of it when it hit the ground. But remember, it hit the ground going at 10,000 feet per minute or whatever. And so it was never heard from again on APRS. The last position report was at 3,000 feet. And so anyway, I went to that area, and that's where I parked. Okay, kind of knew it was coming in from this direction. Right? So I said, well, I'm going to go park at the tree line because that's another 100 feet worth of altitude that's going to give a good chance that it's going to pile up there. So I'm just going to go park here at this tree line, and I'm just going to start walking. Oh, they were smart. In addition to the APRS thing, they put on a little keychain transmitter. Okay, so there's always an RF carrier that you can be in. So I start walking out into this field. Yeah, it's weaker. Let's come back here. Yeah, it's stronger. But now, this is soybeans. Only this high. Why in the world am I having to walk around and look at this thing? Well, even in soybeans only this high, you could not see that balloon until you were 15 feet away because it was completely hidden by soybeans. And I thought that this was going to be a piece of cake because it wasn't corn. but anyway, the point is, it was an APRS payload. How long would it have taken them to search that entire field to find that thing when just by walking around the edge and just continually walking to the stronger signal, you can always find it. So I try to convince Hams that, you know, whenever there's something to DF, go ahead and do it. Get that technique down. You can do it. I think I'm done. Oh, I mentioned this. to Ted on the way over here, you know, there's piles of VHF low band FM equipment. And, you know, we already got enough radios last time we needed some other radios. So what I pointed out to him, what I try to encourage our local activities to, is at least, the guy was selling these radios for $7 a piece, you know, 150 watt 6 meter radio. 99 channels, control head, the whole 9 yards. Couldn't anybody buy them. So anyway, I said at least put them in the EOC. Every fixed location, in the hospitals, the EOC and everything else. So that when we all show up to help at the public service event, at least we got 3 channels we could talk to simultaneously without interference, and not just 2. Because, you know, if you try to operate on 2 meters and 440 and somebody else is in the parking lot talking on another repeater and your descents and you can't get it. So do that fixed location communication between those fixed sites. Put a 6 meter rig in there, and they're a dime a dozen. And now, the reason I put this on here is, one advantage of 6 meters is you can string a really long wire and make it about 10 wavelengths long, and you've got a darn good gain antenna. And so we were showing just a long piece of wire, and you can get almost a 10 dB gain antenna. And so we were saying you set up some pretty good long distance packet links. Not really packet, but you can have a gain antenna one direction. So we said if there's enough people, about every couple hundred miles, that's just listening on 50 point, the APR channel is 50.62, then if anybody, anywhere, during a Katrina type event or anything else wants to go mobile into that area where the entire infrastructure is gone, if he is beaconing on 50.62 every minute, statistically, at least every 10 minutes, he's going to get a meteor scatter band. And if we've got everybody with fixed locations out there, you know, kind of said, I'm listening in this direction, I'm listening in this direction, we can cover the whole United States with, you know, maybe 10 of these things, and at least you could drive anywhere with no infrastructure and without having to use HF, and at least be tracked. If you can afford the 25 amps every minute. That is, yeah, I'm going to get into so. Same question? Oh, I got to show you one thing. Because you remember I was talking about solar and electric vehicles, so now I have finally stopped talking about it and I have bought one. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. What? No, okay, that's okay, down here, hold on. This one? No. This. Hold on. Forward station, go here. And now, let's just go. Okay, so there are conversion kits to turn any vehicle into an electric car. All you do is you buy the motor, you buy the adapter plate to your transmission clutch bell housing, you buy a battery and a controller, and you've got an electric car. Now out here, you guys probably don't need this, but my dream then was to take, get an old MGB, you know, little cute sports car. That was my car when I was a kid. And so I've always wanted to get back to that. So you can buy a dozen MGBs for $2,000 or less. You know, they're everywhere. Needs a little work. So, but you know, the amazing thing is you can buy a fully restored, new seats, new top, new everything for under $8K. Why would you want to go out and buy a new car with today's technology that you can't maintain for $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 when you can buy the car of your dreams, the sports car, for under 10 grand? And spend the rest of your life.
More than 2 people and more than 1 piece of luggage to do it.
And it's got a British motor with a Lucas electrical system, and so it's
that
all.
I can work with.
But at least that's the thing, we can maintain those cars. So that's why I wanted one. But I wanted to make it electric because the reason I'm and I can't stand going to the car dealer. And these days, you've got to go to the dealer because your car has 37 computers in it, and they're the only ones that can tell what's wrong with it. And I just don't like that dependency. So The thing that excites me about the electric conversion kit is you buy a motor, it's got 2 terminals, plus and minus. You buy a bunch of lead acid batteries, you hook them in series or parallel, anything you want. You end up with 2 terminals, plus and minus. And then you got a controller, guess what? It's got 4 terminals on it. Motor, battery. And then it's got a little bitty tiny wire, and they sell you a little bracket with a little potentiometer on it. When you hook that up to your accelerator cable, you're done. You got an electric car. And you have gotten rid of the engine, gasoline, the gas tank, the gas pump, the exhaust system, the exhaust pipe, the muffler, you know, all that stuff. So that was my dream. So I found the MGB of my dreams for $800. It was new top, new seats, totally new paint job, in and out. The guy had gutted it, took the engine out, even painted the engine compartment. You know, it was going to be a show car, $800. In storage for the last 10 years. He got old. What he was going to do was put a 487 V8 in. So he had the fastest MGB, and he said, and there's no hood. And I said, what happened to the hood? He said, well, I sent it out for them to make a big bump in the middle of it, so he could put this engine in it, and then he lost the hood. So anyway, I said, wow, I got the car for $800, so now I'll go buy this $5,000 electric motor and controller. That's a lot of money for me. So I looked around a little more, and I found out, well, there's a guy selling an already converted Honda Civic for $2,000. Already has the electric motor, already has the controller, and already has a 10, 12-volt battery. For $2,000, that's cheaper. And the beautiful thing about this, I can go there, drive around the block, bring it home, drive it, fully understand how this thing works, and then all I got to do is unbolt the motor, put it in, unbolt the batteries, put them in, and then move over the controller. And now I know that I'm working on something that will work when I'm finished with it. So I bought this car. I haven't bought the MGB yet. Once I got this, I said, well, wait a minute. I'm never going to take that motor and battery and all that stuff out of a perfectly good car. So what can I do with this Honda Civic? So I said, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut the rear end out, take the rear end, I'm going to put a truck bed in it. So now I can have a pickup truck too. And the reason it sticks out so far is because what has happened in solar. Solar is now 10% of what it was just 5 years ago. Now you've all seen my Prius that has solar panels on the top. That's $2,400 of solar panels just to cover the roof of a Prius and the hood. So I checked into it, same thing, it cost me about, and this is 5 years later, now that solar has dropped so cheap. But still, putting the panels on the roof and the hood, those have not changed at all in the last 5 years because, you know, it's a panel this big, you put it on a telephone pole to power the remote system and everything else, they're going to charge you $100. Even though the price for solar has gone down, that panel's still going to cost you $100 because there's no competition for that market. Competition is in the 5.5 foot by 3.5 foot solar panels. Now, the 5.5 foot by 3.5, so $2,200 to cover the, what's this called, roof and the hood to get 250 watts worth of solar. However, I can buy one standard home panel for $180. It also gives me 250 watts. So, but where can I put this 5 foot by 3 foot panel? In the bed. So I'm going to have myself a truck with a cover, bed truck, which is solar panel. So I just lift it up, you know, all this stuff. Well, at this conference where I'm sitting in the back room with nothing to do except play with the computer, I got to play around with this idea a little bit, and I said, well, wait a minute. Besides, that looks kind of ugly. It's got to be 5 feet back here so that that panel works, and 1/3 of it is kind of shattered. And you know the thing about solar panels, even the slightest shadow this wide on a 5 foot panel, and the whole panel output goes to 0 because all the current is in series, and if there's one cell that's dark, the whole panel is eliminated. So that was kind of bothering me. Well, here's what I came up with: was why don't I shorten it and bring that thing all the way in to right behind the seat. So now this is a little more pleasing to the eye. And then I said, well, now you can see where it comes in. So now I removed this rear window, and I got this rear window, and I figured this one thing, all I would do is have a little handle back here, and every time I parked, I would just pull it out so I would have a little red flag hanging off of it. That would get rid of the shadow problem. Then I got to think about it. Well, all it takes is a little couple of hinges, and so I pull it out to here, and let's make a little lever in here, that is a pivot that's pivoted right here, and so as I pull back on it, it automatically brings it up. So now I've eliminated the shadow, and I've gained the fact that I can tilt it and pick up more sun in the winter. Then I said, whoops, why not then make it so I can lift it up on the rear end as well, so that when I park, and this is south, so I came up with a little lever there, and I think that's all. So the car is, I own the car, I bought it, but it has not been delivered because part of the deal was, I'll buy this from you, but you got to keep it for the next 6 months and not tell my wife. Because I cannot bring home any new projects until I finish my to-do list. And I figured I'd have that done in a month. Well, it's been 2 months now and count. But at least I am ready to go. And that's the question.
Wow.
Yeah.
From the internet, KF7WC White Paul asked, what are Bob's thoughts on the new Yaesu APRS Mobile and HT?
The new, as of, there's a new, they have the Yaesu FTM 350. Are we live on here?
Yes.
Did I offend anybody today? I've gotten back 3 months later, I heard, you said this on Logan. Yeah, the Yaesu FTM 350 was their first, well, no, that was their first mobile radio. Great radio, but I believe now they've gone to the FTM 400. And that's going to have APRS in it. And my understanding is it's based, virtually, the 350 just ported over to a newer radio, so it'll have all the features of the FTM 350. And remember, it has what we wanted, and that is it will take your frequency in your voice channel and put that into your APRS position package so we know where you are. I don't know what they're doing with HTs. They haven't told me that they're going to go into HT yet. So they got a good line of HTs. And of course, Kenwood has the others, the mobile. But the Kenwood 710 was out for a year or two before the Yaesu came out. So when the Yaesu Bowl came out, it had a little bit better features than the D710 is. But the D710, of course, has some advantages of its own. One thing I did like in the Yaesu version is they expanded the width of the display so you see the station, when you heard him, and his frequency. But they said, why waste that? You got 10 bytes over there to show the frequency. If the guy's not transmitting his frequency, at least show the first 10 bytes of what his brag text is showing, en route to grandma's or whatever. Whereas Kenwood expanded their display to the 8 carriers to include the frequency, which is what I asked for. But if the person's not transmitting his frequency, then it's blank. One advantage of that, though, is you can look at the list and you very quickly see who you can contact by frequency. Whereas on the Yaesu, everybody has those extra 8 characters, and you just kind of have to look for which ones have the frequency. And if they have the frequency, you push the tune button and it's good. Yeah.
Is that radio bidirectional like the Kenwoods? Can you hook up to a computer?
I don't know. I haven't seen the radio yet. I don't know whether they're going to put a serial port.
I don't know if the 350 was or not, but I know for one of the 8s, you couldn't use it with like APRS-TT. The Kenwoods you can.
No, none of the Yaesus today have the serial ports where you can actually access that data.
All right.
It's only on the front end. Any other questions? Okay, well, I just start thinking about APRSTT. We're not trying to cram a square peg into a round hole, but if there are applications where you can send a few numbers to net control to save an awful lot of talk, then think how you're going to use that. Oh, by the way, although the format that I said we're going to use for the race event is, 2 digits of position brought from the table and then n number of digits for the runner number or something, we're also going to make, Bion is going to make that thing generic that says if a DTMF string comes in and starts with a star and ends with a pound and it's not in these other formats, then just send it out raw in an APRS packet and let some other guy write software to parse that and say, oh, and it builds this database and do all other kinds of things. So that everybody doesn't have to have a DTMF decoder on their laptop to do this. The one DTMF decoder up the repeater site puts it over on the APRS channel, and then anywhere in the whole Cache Valley, you've got that APRS version of what the DTMF user sent, and now you can figure out how you want to do that. So again, it's just extending the machine-readable transfer of data from people out in the field into net control, which is what I'm so excited about, and which is what APRS was always about until people started selling trackers. Okay, yes?
In that one gateway that you said, you had two HDs.
Yes.
One D7 and the other one was,
No, neither one of them are D7. Let me show you what they are. They're both little Alinco 300 milliwatt radios, because those were the cheapest back at the time.
Are those the credit card radios or?
They're the ones that look like a little FRS radio. They're identical radios. And again, all they are, neither one of them is an APRS radio. They're just two little radios. This one is on 144.39, so this is the one that puts the packets over on the APRS channel. This is the one that is listening for DTMF coming in and sending out the acknowledgement, the K or the R or whatever, to acknowledge the DTMF user. So it's just two radios and about under $99 worth of stuff to put up with APRS stuff. Yes, sir.
How are you controlling the interaction between the two radios?
Well, I showed you what's inside the box. There's a little, how do we try before?
Yes, but you're still both transmitting in the same band?
One's on VHF, one's on UHF.
In this case, they're on different bands, simply because that's the only two radios I had. They could be on the same band, because remember, they're both listening all the time. When this one hears a DTMF, it keys up to send out the ACK. This one keys up to send out the APRS. They can both be transmitting at the same time, because they're both doing their job at the same time, and then they both go back to listening. So it's really, you can do it in the same band. And what I'm kind of proposing, just like we stole 144.39 from
Satellite.
everybody, I'm proposing that 146.58 be kind of the universal APRS-Touch-Tone input, if not currently in use for something else. Because unlike APRS, where you want the same channel everywhere you go, APRS-Touch-Tone is purely a local, simplex VHF thing. So it can be on any frequency. But wouldn't it be nice if it was on the same frequency everywhere? Why did I choose 146.58? Because 146.58 works back east where we're on 15 kHz channel, and it works in some of those god-awful states where they have 20 kHz space, and who in the world would ever think of somebody to do that? But 5.8 is also on that raster, I believe, so that's why I chose 5.8. But I don't want to start any range wars. If somebody's already using 5.8, just do a different thing. Why? It doesn't matter, because remember, on the other thing that this thing is doing is once every 10, where'd it go? Once every 10 minutes, the APRS side of this is sending out its own little position report saying, this is where I am, and this is the frequency I'm listening on. Because remember, every APRS packet now can contain where you are and what frequency you're on. So you'll see this thing on the map. And if you're APRS, so you'll see what frequency it's on, and so you'll know when you're in Logan, you can use this frequency, whatever it is, for your input. After visiting your site up there on Logan Mountain and seeing a radio up there at a TNC with nothing plugged into the serial port, I said, well, there's an easier way to do it. We don't need this radio. Have the APRS output of this tracker, instead of coming out as audio and PTT, have it come out the serial port, so you just plug that into the unused serial port on the existing radio, so now you save another radio. So the APRS-TT function is simply an HT, and then the APRS-Touch-Tone hardware. I'm really excited about it. Have been for 13 years now, but now we've got a piece of hardware you can hold in your hand. I appreciate you guys coming out and listening to me every year. Back where I'm from, they don't listen.
Where I'm from, they don't listen to me anymore.
We're getting out here before sunset. Yeah.
We're on out.